Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Loam Wolf MTB podcast. Today, we have Alex Petitdemange, who works for Fox, specifically in their tuning and engineering department. He works most directly with brands, helping them develop shock tunes for their future release bikes. So he's really imperative in partnering up with the brands and helping those brands select an OE tune on the bikes that you end up purchasing and riding out on the trail. So we're going to talk about suspension tunes, suspension theory, tips and suggestions on tuning your suspension. We're going to talk a little bit about the Fox Podium, as well as his personal favorite bikes and suspension products, the future of MTB suspension, and of course, we're going to ask him where and what bike he would take should he get stranded somewhere for the rest of his life. So let's dive into today's episode. Thanks for listening. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for the Loam Wolf MTB podcast. We are here with Alex Petitdemange. Did I pronounce that all right?
Yeah, it was
pretty good. I'm not French, but he's someone we actually did a video with a while back. Actually, it was about a year ago at the Pivot Switchblade launch in Finale, which was an awesome camp. We are back in Phoenix for another new bike launch, and thought it'd be a good time to get a conversation going. So talk to us really quick about what it is you do for Fox.
Yeah, so I'm in the engineering team, mainly part of the product performance team. So once we have new product, we develop the tunes specifically to the OEM. So we do test camps usually, go to the brand and spend a few days and have multiple shocks to go through, some forks to go through. So when you buy a bike, it's perfectly tuned to the kinematic of that frame.
Now there's, some brands or people talk about, there's kind of like, if I'm not mistaken, a menu of shock tunes, right?
Yeah.
High, low, this, that,
library, we would call it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how different are the different tunes? And like when you work with a brand like, for example, Pivot, like we're here at now, are they using something that's sort of preset out of that library, or do some brands pick those, or do some really do like a full custom tune?
Yeah, so it kind of depends. So with Pivot, it's a pretty specific situation. I basically, since I live here and they're here, I kind of got dedicated to work with them directly. And so with Chris, I have usually a frame or a bike ahead of time, so I have some time to work on it more than just a few days, and also save him a lot of time from traveling and be blocked off for 1 week. So we usually, or at least I try to start with library, because it's already something we have, and that's like part numbers, and like the background of it can be a little more complicated if we do fully custom. But if I fall in between, let's say I have number 1 and number 2, and number 1 is good there but not quite, and number 2 is good there but not quite, then we go in the middle or try to do something specific.
Okay. And how much, I guess, data are you collecting in a hard data format, right, with numbers versus just ride feel?
Oh, as far on the bike itself?
Yeah.
Not a lot. We have all the data from the brand.
Right.
So like all the kinematics number, the anti-squat, the leverage ratios, all of this. And then on our side, we have a lot of the data on the shock, which is mainly on the dyno. So yeah, we don't use a lot of data acquisition, if that's where you were going. Mm-hmm. We've done it before, but we saw that it was more like, it's not even really a suggestion, it's more like a confirmation.
Okay.
So sometimes it could be helpful, but I think it's maybe a little more of a race product than it is for OEM.
Okay.
So like the right feel and the capability of the bike for what the target of that bike is, I think comes in a place that's easier to manage that way, I'd say.
Yeah.
And then Chris is very involved, as you know, with his bikes. So once I get a couple of good options, I build a couple shocks and give it to him, and he rides them and whenever he has time and then gives feedback. So he could hit the mark right away, or he wants a little bit of this one and a little bit of this one, and then I go back to work again. So he's the one that's gonna validate the most. We have some internal software, I would call it, that we use also to get suggestions. So the bike is in the system. As far as kinematics, our product are in the system. We can say this bike uses this product, and it kind of gives us a good baseline to know where to start. So when we do shorter time on the week camps, that's when it's really helpful.
Okay.
So we can start in a good place.
And maybe you could talk a little bit about that program and how it was applied. Like, for example, over the last couple of days that we were,
Yeah.
you know, the editors were here getting on a brand new bike.
Yeah, so I got the list of riders from Pivot, mainly the weight. Ideally, the riding style helps also, but since I knew some of you guys, I could adjust to that. And then I'll just input that we're gonna ride this bike and we have this shock and this fork on it, and it just gives us a good calculation of the baseline,
Okay.
mainly for springs, so for spring rates, so air pressures.
And we made a little bit of adjustments, I guess, from yesterday to today.
Yeah.
Also made adjustments to the bike chassis, which obviously affects things with leverage and center of gravity and all that. But it felt like the adjustments today, I was pretty happy with where everything
Yeah,
ended
and
up.
the adjustments today was like part of like our discussion, and that would be what I would be doing with the customer after the first few runs.
Mhm.
So like not necessarily using any system for that, just by what you described, that was the logical choice to try first.
Okay. And when to give advice to people who maybe don't have the luxury of riding with you, how would you maybe suggest they evaluate the things they're feeling or the things they're thinking about their bike and its suspension, and making their own tuning adjustments?
Yeah, it could get complicated pretty quick for sure. And sometimes there's like reverse feeling. Sometimes you can feel like your bike is too soft, and it's actually the other way around. You need a lot more damping to get more wheel control. So like you turn the clicks the wrong way. But I would say that would be one thing, is like when you have a lot of adjusters, starting in the middle of the adjusters is always kind of a good baseline. Doing the sag number one is always right. So that's the spring rate, and then go from there. Yeah.
It is tricky and tough, because I personally know from experience, and I mean, I've ridden a lot of bikes and spent lots of time tuning and testing, but there are certain bikes that have different characteristics, and there have been times where I'm convinced the bike is too stiff and too harsh, and so I'm wanting to air down.
Yep.
And then I'm like, well, now I need more volume reducers because I'm undersprung, but then it almost just makes the bike feel harsher. And it's because I'm riding at that progression mark where it gets in that spike. And sometimes, like, to make the bike softer, I actually needed more air or a heavier spring rate, which is something that I think probably some people don't do or know.
Yeah, and I'd say I don't see how it could be the best way to help somebody except
Experiment.
doing a camp with us.
Yeah.
Which we don't offer to the public, but it's something that I've actually talked about before.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I would say also, if you start getting lost into your click adjusters and stuff, going back to the middle and then experiencing like all the way closed or all the way open can give a good idea. Like, especially when you try to do one or two in one direction and it's not going the way you want. So sometimes doing more massive increments will give you a better idea.
And only changing one thing at a time, right?
Always one thing at a time.
So
and
just air or just rebound or
and
just
then
compression.
Also focusing on the front or focusing on the rear, because every time you're gonna move the front is gonna affect the rear and vice versa. So yeah, I'd say trying to do the base sag is the very most important thing to have a balanced bike, and then from there focusing on one end at the time.
And I think probably base sag is number 1, and 2 would maybe be rebound. I think I remember in our last conversation you had a great comment about rebound, and what is that again?
Yeah, it's never too fast until it's too fast.
Okay. So basically run the rebound as fast as you can get it.
As fast as it's
a problem.
controllable, yeah, exactly. Because it'll get more chance for the fork or the shock to recover and basically have more control and more movement, so it doesn't get hang up and have time to have the full travel again before the next event.
Okay. So sag, get rebound as fast as you feel is comfortable, and then start working on compression perhaps after that.
And put the compression in the middle to start and go from there.
Okay. Good deal. As far as other, I guess, experiences, memories, challenges of the bike industry and tuning suspension, what are stories that stand out to you? Maybe it's like a learning experience personally of something that you were doing wrong, or a memory of working with someone that was just like brought a very unique or different perspective to the table that you...
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'd say the one that comes the most often is the customer just keep insisting to go softer and softer and softer. And then we like kind of the end of the library where it's too soft, and we really would need to go like full custom to make something that has 0 damping. And kind of taking the decision to not say that we're going completely the other way and put a lot of damping, and then all of a sudden the bike is good.
Really?
So that happened a handful of times.
So where someone said, kind of like what I was just saying, I had been guilty of doing is they thought that the bike was too harsh, so they wanted a softer shock, and then you say, here's your softer shock, but it's actually a much more damp shock.
I didn't say it was a softer shock, but we decided to go quite a bit more damping, and we just say, hey, let's try this, because we're getting kind of in a place where we don't have a lot of options. So let's try this and see where it goes. And so that was like 3 or 4 steps above what he already had. And then, all of a sudden it was like the magic carpet, and
that was the
we
feel.
just had to do a couple more adjustments, and that was it.
And did you tell the customer?
Yeah, we did end up explaining and like put, some science behind it in some ways of like, this is what your bike is doing, and you have this kind of starting rate and all of that, and this is why it does that.
And did that person say, wow, that I didn't expect that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was humbled about it, but in a good way.
Yeah.
And like, I learned this from experiencing myself.
Yeah.
Like, because I know the customer a couple of years ago, we were kind of in the same problem, and one of the colleagues suggested is like, if you keep going that way, just go the other way and see what happens. And then all of a sudden, it was much better. So.
Which, if we circle back, could be a great thing for individuals to do with their bikes.
Yeah.
Too, right? Like.
Yeah, like I was saying, like going
sometimes
full,
you just
full close or full open, and kind of see what the reaction is from that, and I can give you the right direction to go.
Instead of like making small changes and be like, I don't know if it's getting better, be like, you know what, just go way to the other end and see. Then you'll at least have more of a noticeable difference of like, oh yeah, no, that made it worse, or that actually I might be getting closer.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Okay. Next question. Where do you see the future of mountain bike suspension going?
I think more options, like for forks and shocks, as far as tunes.
Yeah.
Trying to make that more available to the public, which, it could be a double-edged sword, because let's say you buy a fork that has the lightest tune, and then you resell your bike and it has that lightest tune. Whoever's gonna buy this, if it's not the same person, then they might be stuck into having to buy the next one or something like that. But I really think with how the bikes are right now, like if you look back, I would say 2020, 2021 bike hasn't really changed, like as far as kinematics, geometries. An enduro bike is like this, a trail bike's like this, an XC bike's like this. Yeah. And that's kind of what it's been. So you always have latest stuff, but...
And that's kind of where I'm wondering, like...
What's gonna change is how good the suspension can be.
Okay.
The tires also, I think. because it's the connection to the ground.
Yeah.
Um,
So do you think that we're kind of at a bit of a lull in frame evolution? Like there's going to have to be something radically different to get a really big leap in suspension performance?
I think the performance is here for sure, and yeah, I think trying to educate the end customer. I think with our direct customer, which was the OEM, it's getting to a really good place. Like this team exists it's gonna be the 4th year now, and the amount of customer we have that wants to do those camps with us is bigger and bigger and bigger. Which shows that if you buy a bike now, it's gonna be pretty advanced.
Yeah.
As
Yeah,
far
because the
as
stuff that
how
you're
tuned it is, yeah,
the stuff that you're working on at these camps is
is
2,
what
3,
people
4
buy.
years out, right?
Maybe not 4, but yeah, usually a year to 2 years.
Okay.
It has to go with model year. So
Yeah.
when those OEM have to make orders at Fox, then they need to know what they're gonna buy from us. So that's when we need to do those camps, so they have the model of the shock with the right tune in it, and same for the forks.
And speaking of new stuff and what's coming, how long before the Podium was launched were you aware and riding that?
So the Podium was super accelerated. We did the whole project in 7 months.
Really?
Yeah. Which is it's a kind of a record for that kind of project for sure.
And have you been riding that fork a lot?
Yeah. I was involved pretty early. We had, I think, 8 rideable fork at very first, and I had one of them, so that was nice. And yeah, just like trying to isolate everything and figure out how they ride, how they work, the tune that we need to get. One guy was dedicated to the tune, and then yeah, we were just, few of us was riding to just get feedback and figuring out how it works and what it's good at and what we should change or not. Or so yeah, it's an interesting development. But yeah, I have a couple of them, and I have one on my girlfriend's bike, which actually solved a lot of problem.
Really?
She's one of my hardest customer.
Okay, so why is she
So
hard? And what did it solve?
she's really light. She's not very aggressive. She rides really well. But yeah, there's always every ride she wanted to start turning clicks here and there on 36, 38, different kind of 36, different dampers, did some custom ones, and it was never the right thing, and always wanting to change stuff. So with what she was describing, I was like, I think the Podium might actually help. And yeah, it's been there since.
Really?
So
no more knob turning or
no,
tuning?
not really. Yeah, it's been pretty good.
So is it comfort that she was struggling with, or?
Well, since she's light and not aggressive, she always had issues using the travel of the fork.
Okay.
And with Podium, with the super low friction and the way it functions, the more you compress and the easier it is to compress, pretty much, because the axle's getting closer and there's less friction. And
it's heavier.
Yeah, it's heavier in the front of the bike, which kind of helped her balance to get more in the front.
Yeah.
And yeah, just because when you manage the air spring on that Podium, you can really make it very linear, and yeah, it works for her. So it's been good.
On your personal bike, would you opt to run a 38, a 36, or a Podium?
It depends on the bike.
Yeah?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we talked about it last time, but to me, the Podium is the high pivot of forks.
Okay.
That's what I like to describe it, because I think it does similar things. Like when you ride a really well-designed high pivot, it really doesn't hang and the wheel gets away from the obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the Podium has that effect. Actually, particularly uphill, I feel like.
Yeah.
When you do some of those ledges that we rode the past few days, all those big square edge that you go face on, it just really gets out of the way and doesn't slow the bike down.
Yeah.
So I think when you match it with a rear suspension that does similar thing, So high pivot could be one, or long travel enduro bike. Then I think it makes a lot of sense. On e-bikes, it makes a lot of sense, because the weight doesn't matter as much, and then the stiffness, and yeah. But yeah, I don't think it's for every bike, and I don't think it's for everyone either.
How about for as far as like tuning tips? I know we have exchanged quite a few text messages and conversations about it. Any thoughts for people who may be out there who own one or are thinking about getting one that you would say to work on?
Yeah, I think as just general rule, you need to run more compression than you would with the 38. So let's say that you have a Grip X2 damper on a 38, and you're at 5 and 10, like 5 high speed and 10 low speed. You're probably gonna start closing to like maybe 3 and 7, just to help with that more linear movement of the podium. And then the ratio air pressure volume spacer matters also, to like not going through that travel too fast. So yeah, it's finding that balance, but just running more compression altogether is a pretty average rule from all the testing we've done with customers. Always was more.
How about rebound on that same? Try to run it quick, or any difference there?
I believe the current tune in there, the rebound is actually a little bit lighter than some of our other fork rebound. But yeah, it's the same principle. I think find when it gets too quick and then close back from there.
Okay. And then as far as tunes go, just going back to that a little bit for fork, but more specifically shock. If someone is to go and buy a tune or a shock, I should say, from Jensen or Backcountry, that just has like an LM or ML, like how different is that going to be versus like the OE stock?
Yeah, I mean,
shock?
it'll be I believe if you buy it directly from Fox, you have the ability to say what bike you have.
Okay.
And then we do have that in file to know. So like with Pivot, because that's what we are, again, like if you say I have a Firebird and you're buying an X2, they can put the tune that we sell to Pivot for the Firebird.
Okay. So yeah, so if you're just buying from
if you
bulk.
buy it from a stock in a shop or Jensen or something like that, then
it'll be close,
probably be whatever they have, which is, it's usually the middle of the library, so like a medium everything sort of thing.
So you would suggest then for people who do really care and want to dial their bikes into, it's worth going direct to you guys to get the properly tuned shock.
Or buy it at Jensen and then send it to Fox to get retuned. That's an option.
Oh yeah, okay, fair enough.
But yeah, I'd say like with all of the products right now that we have and even the competition have, like it can make or break a bike to have the wrong tune in it.
Yeah.
I think the design around all the new suspension stuff for a few years is very high end and high tech, and making it match the bike is definitely a big deal. So I think before buying shiny stems and carbon cranks, it's probably more beneficial to get your shock tuned for your frame. Okay.
And speaking of beneficial and performance and compromising, what about service? Is that really something that is going to affect suspension?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say like we have hour counts and stuff like that for service. But the general rule is, especially with the forks, if you start wanting to change your air pressure or wanting to move clicks here and there because it feels different, that's probably because it's time for service.
Okay. Can we talk about what kind of bike you'd want to ride? If you
currently?
Yeah. If you could pick any bike.
I mean, I'm lucky to ride a lot of bikes.
What stands out to you?
Honestly, this is not for Pivot, so I can talk. But now the latest Yeti e-bikes. I don't ride a lot of e-bikes, but I want that bike as a non-e-bike.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think what the suspension is doing is really good.
Okay. I think we're in line there.
Yeah.
Because I don't love Yeti's non-e-bikes. And I know we've talked about this and you've tried to help with my suspension tuning on camps. I like low anti-squat bikes. I like a very supple, lively, sensitive suspension feel. And the Yeti e-bikes, especially the MTE, nail it.
Yeah, it's really.
And you know, when I did the presentation with Yeti, they're like, "This is the lowest anti-squat bike we've ever made in the history of Yeti bikes," and I was like, "Ding ding," like, what do you know? And it descends better, at least in my opinion. Man, I like the 6-bar on that thing a lot, and the way that bike goes through really rough, chunky stuff, and the wheel gets out of the way, I think is really nice. So, do you like one more than the other, the LTE or the MTE?
I haven't ridden the LTE.
Okay.
Just the MTE.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like that bike. Yeah, I've tried a couple of those things right now, and yeah, also I'm excited about the big wheels.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You think so? Yeah, you're definitely a pedal guy for sure.
Yeah.
So you think 32 inches are going to come?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know they're coming.
Yeah, they're definitely coming.
Have you been riding them much?
Yeah, enough. And yeah, it's, I think for a short travel bike, up to like 120, maybe 130. I don't see why I wouldn't ride one of those.
How tall are you?
5'6".
Okay. And you don't have any problems?
No, and I think honestly it's gonna be kind of a sweet spot if you're like on a medium or on a large, because when you start going on those big frames, the head tube gets so tall, then that addition of the fork lengths and the wheel lengths, then the stack becomes crazy for those tall guys.
Yeah.
Some of the bikes I've ridden now, which is all prototype phase, nobody that I know of has committed yet. It was just a regular stem on top of the tube with flat bars, and I had no problem on my stack height.
Okay.
But I think if you start raising that head tube that big for those big frames, it's gonna start being really high, and then you can see some of the stuff that have been seen already with like completely reverse stem. But yeah, I think it's gonna be an interesting new thing that's very new again and different. And I also think there's not gonna be bad bikes. Like when 29er came, the wheel size was one thing, but a lot of other things were still not ready. Like the geometry wasn't really good, the wheels, the axles. And I think everything that has been learned by the industry switching to 29 is already learned now, and fitting those bigger wheels is not gonna be that big of a difference. And that, I don't know. I'm excited about it.
Are you? Have you ridden it? Have you ridden it much at South Mountain?
No.
Just at Haas?
No, more in other places.
Yeah. Okay. How do you think it would be at Haas, like some of those techie ledges? Do you think you'd be able to get that big wheel up over those? And how about the tight switchbacks like we were riding today?
I haven't had a problem.
Really? That's crazy. I
think the frame and the wheelbase is what matters the most, but there's so much extra traction. I don't know. I'm excited about it.
From a curiosity standpoint, it's like a novelty. I'm like mildly interested. I guess from a professional standpoint, I have to be open-minded enough to try it and be, fully objective about it. And I absolutely will be, but man, I don't know, dude. I can't say like, if someone was asking me like, what would you like to see out of mountain bikes and the evolution of mountain bikes, technology or performance, I didn't have, on my Uno card list of 32-inch wheels being an option, but nevertheless, here we go, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't come with the idea. I'm just...
Yeah, but you're liking it.
Being what is there so far, yeah.
Okay.
So far.
All right.
It's been
very
interesting
good.
For sure.
Okay. Inverted forks, what do you think the future of those hold? Will they
we'll
stick?
see.
Will
like
more brands come?
Yeah, it's tried. It's tried in the past. It's stuck for the downhill, but only one brand has stuck to it. There's all the boutique-y ones. which, you know, that there's been a lot of heat on the podium, but I think what people don't realize is that we're in the production level, things change a lot compared to if you have to do like
Small batch.
1,000 of them.
Yeah.
The tolerances, the quality of the production, the assembly, when it gets to a higher level production, if you want to stay within those prototype style tolerances, I mean, that fork would cost twice as much as it does already.
Yeah.
So it's
Which
not
some do, I guess.
viable in production. So yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. I think the weight can always be a factor in people's mind. We've had a lot of requests to make it 180, bigger travel than it is right now. I mean, there's probably some possibilities. I don't know exactly, but I don't know what other companies are gonna do, or if it's gonna stick around, or if it's just gonna stay kind of a boutique product.
Yeah.
Like all the other ones. We'll
Yeah.
see. We sold out of the first batch, and
Well,
like Pivot has just decided to spec
Spec
that.
it.
Yeah.
that's pretty wild.
So,
And I mean,
some of the brand did also.
oh, really?
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
in Europe, there's a lot of e-bike that
that's
are coming. With
those are
it.
two good steps in getting it locked in into the industry for sure, I would say. And because I mean, I think the more people that ride it, the more are going to see that there really truly are some performance benefits to be had.
Yeah, and before you believe the internet, ride it first.
Yeah. We're firm believers in that, right? Right on, man. Well, let's see here. If you had to get stuck somewhere for the rest of your life, you had one bike to take and one place to ride for the rest of your life, where would it be?
Phew. Gotta say, I don't know. The weather is hard to beat here, except when it's hot. But
Yeah.
I think maybe Colorado.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
And what bike would you have?
Anything like a real 160 bike, I'd say.
Yeah.
36, 160, somewhere 150 or 160 in the back. Be fine.
A non-e-bike?
Non-e-bike.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cyber-
Can be stranded with dead batteries. Everything cables and yeah.
That's it. Okay. Well, there you have it. Thank you,
Well, if
Alex.
it's the end of the world, I don't know if I'll have power again.
Right? Yeah, you just have some solar panels and stuff. Right on, man. Well, thanks very much.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in for another episode. If you have any questions for Alex or about suspension in general, leave them down below, and we'll try to get to you or forward them on to Alex, and he'll try to write in, right? I'm going to commit you into checking comments. So
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you on the next one.